Hey, Carl here. The following podcast was recorded at noon on Tuesday, April 8th, 2025. All information presented is true and valid up until the time of recording. Let's get started. Welcome back to Crayon Box Politics Weekly, your go-to podcast for breaking down the latest in state and federal legislation. I'm Carl, a retired Marine turned political enthusiast, here to help you stay informed and engaged.
And I'm Avery, your co host on this journey. Together, we're here to unpack the policies and decisions shaping our lives, one bill at a time.
This week, we're going to stick with the new format, taking a pause from our regular congressional and presidential activity breakdowns.
Instead, we're doing a deep dive on one of the biggest stories dominating the headlines this week, the tariffs announced by President Trump on April 2nd, which he is calling his Liberation Day.
Now, let me be clear. This isn't just rhetoric coming from Donald Trump and details about him fulfilling presidential promises or campaign promises that he made while he was stumping for his second term as president. But this is more about talking about the after effects of what happens when Donald Trump unleashes the power of the tariff on the global economy.
Yeah, he's also targeting around 60 countries, which, with all of that, he calls the reciprocal tariffs. China's looking at a whopping 5.4% total, Vietnam 4.6, and EU 20%. Holy crap. That is full on economic offensive.
I think you meant 54% and 46%
Oh,
respectively when
Jesus
it's talking
Christ.
about
Yeah,
China and
I
Vietnam.
can't I can't speak today. I cannot speak today.
but yeah, it's one of those things where like it sounds like bold leadership when you're on the campaign trail and you're stumping in order to garner public support. But at the end of the day, like all of these things turn into a messy, discombobulated situation that we are in now, where oversimplification, which is something that is frequently done by the Trump administration, has led to a situation of full on economic and international turmoil the globe over.
Listen, Linda, we're not trying to get on a whole Carl on a soapbox episode, okay? So I need you to simmer down. Just calm down a little. I know you get heated. Just it's okay.
Yeah, so I'm not trying to do like the whole sky is falling here, but we've talked about this in depth before, and at the risk of me getting on that soapbox, we're going to talk about it again.
Chicken
So
little.
hey, I'm doing my best to kind of like get this thing hammered down and get this issue, this topic kind of looked at from all different sides. You know, last week we talked about how it was important not to forget about the issue relating to the Trump administration's lackadaisical approach when it came to national security. Well, this same situation is occurring, but on the economic front. And, you know, while I don't want to get into the details on the formula that Donald Trump used, the formula itself, if you actually look at it, looks like it was something that was derived directly from ChatGPT, or in Trump parlance, Grok, because, you know, Grok AI and XAI now run X. So,
Yeah, all right. Let's not put ChatGPT in the same category as them, okay? He is, well, mine is a he. I call him he, Charlie. He is really smart and does his job really well. And, Grok is still having challenges. So, it's okay.
yeah, but what I can say is that it's definitely one of those things where you kind of realize that the fault, excuse me, it's one of those things where you kind of realize that the flaw is not in the artificial intelligence, but in the ability for human beings to understand that artificial intelligence is flawed. And when you're given a formula that makes not sense, it probably doesn't make any sense. So you
I
probably
mean,
shouldn't apply it.
my math hasn't been mathing for a little while, so here we are.
Yeah. But at the end of
Speaking
the
of
day,
math,
yeah, what we're doing is we're looking at this from, again, the policy. We're looking at this from, again, the policy perspective, right? We're looking at this from the point of view that, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And so you're going to run around and you're going to beat the living daylights out of everything in the hopes that you're going to improve things. When in
right?
reality, all you're doing is destroying things.
Everything. Destroy everything.
Yeah. But again, folks, what I'll tell you is grab your favorite color from the crayon box and let's draw some clarity from the chaos.
Well, now, if you were with us last season, you'll remember we talked about the long arc of the tariff history in the U.S. from the tariff of 1789. Did I get that right? Yeah, 1789
Yep.
to Smoot-Hawley in the Great Depression, or Trump's first round of tariffs back in 2018.
Yeah, so it's actually it's actually interesting. We didn't record yesterday just because of scheduling conflicts, but I'm kind of glad that we didn't, because it did give us the opportunity to hear some things from Donald Trump that we wouldn't have heard before, right? Like the Panicans. Apparently now there is a new
Yeah,
political party called the Panican. And that's because people are panicking over the fact that the Dow Jones Industrial, the S&P 500, the
they're
Nasdaq, all
robbed.
three of those are indices that talk to how well the American economy is doing, and
Not
all
good.
of them tanked over the weekend. While our good president was off playing golf and winning tournaments on his golf course that were set by him. So I guess he rigged the game. I don't know how to like work that one out to me. But in addition to that,
I don't know.
he was also charging $1 million a person for a candlelit dinner at Mar-a-Lago.
Wouldn't that be the same around the same time that 4 U.S. soldiers were brought back from
Oh,
Lithuania and
yep,
he
yep.
didn't go to? Yeah, okay. Either it is what it is. Oh man,
Yeah,
I
so
just I can't with
we
him.
were we, we were quite literally last year we were looking at this from the perspective of what if this happens, how will the economy react? And now we have the answer, right? Like last week was Liberation Week. Last week we had Liberation Day. And last week on April 2nd, Donald Trump decided to completely obliterate the economy that he was handed by President Biden.
You feel
And
liberated?
I felt liberated the day that I retired because I was
Well,
finally able to speak my mind about these people.
yeah. God,
And
don't do
when
that now because people are getting.
yeah,
I didn't
I'm
talk to you.
just
Yeah.
I I don't feel liberated by this, but I feel liberated by the fact that I can shine light on this craziness, this absurdity that is Liberation Day tariffs.
Or does to everything, because holy crap, it makes you feel like things are going better and then it plummets again.
Yeah, so in what we did find is, again, that whole Monday thing being what it is. Monday rolled around. There was a prediction that stocks were going to continue to tank in Monday and then they were going to rebound on Tuesday. Well, a rumor was started that Trump was opening up the possibility of doing a 90-day delay on tariffs, that he was opening up the possibility of pulling back on tariffs and making trade deals, and that those rumors got to Wall Street and Wall Street rebounded, right? And
Right?
man, I tell you what, I've seen all over Twitter this morning. It was green, 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 green. Oh, what about the stock market crash? the problem is that these are all taken in a snapshot, right? Like when you look
Right.
at the 5-year, 10-year period, it's not as pretty as it could be. So at the end of the day, we're continuously going down this path of cognitive dissonance is real and true among the maggots. Well, I think this is the first time I've used maggot
I
during the
know.
podcast.
Uh,
But it's real among the maggots. Like it's strong among them. Their ability to ignore the facts in favor of making themselves feel good is absolutely ludicrous. So, yeah.
it's, what's crazy and interesting is it's not just affecting, our economy. Like other countries are having to flip their quote unquote circuit breaker and shut down trading because their shit take too. It went crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the world over, right? Like
Right? Yeah.
it doesn't matter where you're from. Although I will say that ironically, I took a look at the indices coming from Great Britain, and it looks like Great Britain is outperforming the United States right now when it comes to its capability to rebound from the shock.
Yeah. Well, I it's interesting. He's just tearing everything apart. Well, because it's not just him. I mean, yeah, he is, but his whole administration, the whole cabinet itself. If it's not one thing, it's another. So, but yeah, his big, beautiful word that he loves so much has a huge impact on everything, not just us.
Yeah, the German stock exchange is in the rebound right now, and they saw a 1 day 2.5% increase. That's not, I mean, that's nothing compared to the 9.8% drop over the last 5 days and the 12.5% drop over the last month that the DAX is suffering, right? But like when you look at it from the point of view of, and folks, I am not an economist. I am not a stock person, but I like to look at things from a data perspective, and I look at things from the point of view of how are things looking, right? Like what does it mean to see these things?
And I
And
mean, you
when you,
also. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
the 1 week performance for the S&P 500 is negative 10.98%. Like we're
Yeah.
not doing well. And for
Right.
anyone to look at from the perspective of, oh well, stocks are doing great, like the S&P 500 volatility index is looking positive because we're in a volatile state.
Right. And
I mean, it's ridiculous.
and we're it's not just steel, it's not just soybeans, it's computers, it's cars, it's medicine, clothing, like anything and everything that we buy or that we import is getting more expensive. So it's not just eggs, it's not it's everything and anything. What was the thing we had dairy and meat coming from Canada. We have cars from Mexico. Like everything is going up, and it's going to continue to go up because he doesn't care. He does not care. It's not affecting him per se.
Yeah, I mean, S&P today 79-point change. Nasdaq 340-point change. Dow Jones 320-point change. You look at Tesla. Tesla's lost 11.4 points.
Yeah, he's losing over $1 billion a day. I think is what I read somewhere.
Yep. So I mean,
Must be nice to
we
have that
go
much money to lose.
we go through this consistently. Like it's over and over and over and over and over. And I mentioned the whole issue with regards to the cognitive dissonance, and the cognitive dissonance exists in the fact that Republicans are seeing the stock market tank, and rather than then look at it from a holistic point of view. You have some of the more aged, seasoned maggots that are running around saying, "Oh, well, the stock market has its ups and its downs, and this is just a correction." And then you have your less seasoned maggots who are hopping in at the very beginning of the day and being like, "Oh, green, look at this. The experts were wrong." When in reality, the experts were right, because you have to look at it from a larger perspective, right? Now, a lot of the questions kind of pop up when it comes to, like, can he do this, right? How is it that the president has the authority to obliterate, like literally take a nuclear bomb and drop it on the United States economy and blow everything up with no consequences?
I read something before we started recording, and it was kind of funny, but it's not funny at the same time. It's this is going to be our first Great Depression, that we've gone through, quote unquote. But this time we're eating the dogs and we're eating the cats.
I really hope we don't get there.
My
I mean,
God, I hope not either. I was trying to bring some fun into it, but yeah, like I
I
said,
know,
not fun,
bro.
not funny, but oh my God.
It's just it's unbelievable, right? Like, we had during the first Great Depression, right? That was one. It was an economic recession before it became a depression. It became a depression because of the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act,
Right.
which completely tanked the American economy in an effort to increase revenue to the government. But in addition to that, like, you had all of these other phenomenon and issues that popped up, right? Like, you had the Spanish influenza that popped up. You had the issue with the Dust Bowl pop up, where there was a massive drought in the Midwest, and that gave rise to the Okies, right? And I did a podcast, not a podcast, but I wrote a blog on the Okies, and I kind of created my own fictional characters called the Smokies, right, to kind of paint that image. Now, that podcast, or excuse me, that blog was written in support of immigration and in analyzing illegal immigration in the United States. But I think we're headed back in that direction, where those who are in the poorer states are going to wind up having to navigate their way out of those states in order to get to the more successful states, just so that they can live their life. So we're going to have another tale of two countries again, only this time it's going to be the poor versus the rich. And the rich just keep getting richer. And that's just kind of where we're at.
What you're saying is, and we've talked about it before, and we'll keep talking about it because that's what happens, is that history repeats itself. That this is just going to be like before, except louder and more expensive and a lot more tweets. Is it
Yeah.
called tweets, or is it X's? Is it a kiss? Like, I don't.
Is X the kiss, or is O the kiss?
Ooh, X's. Was it X's
X's
and
and
O's?
O's, kisses and hugs.
Or is it hugs
I
and
guess
kisses?
maybe it's hugs and kisses.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know which.
but to answer your question, I really I don't know what it is. I'm just going to continue to call it tweets,
Yeah.
because Twitter. I really
Yeah.
do hope that.
What the fuck? Okay. All right. He wasn't going away.
I'm going to keep calling it tweets, because I'm hoping that one day XAI will divest from X and X will revert to Twitter.
Oh no.
Probably won't. But it's good to hope, right? Like, it's good to have hope in everything.
Yeah, you definitely the most optimistic of the two of us. But we're going to do it. We may get a move. It's gonna happen. We're gonna do it.
We'll get there
Yay.
eventually,
Yay.
slowly but surely. But here's the other thing, right? Like Senator Grassley, he put it into words that I've been saying for since I can remember, and it's that Congress has kind of given the president more and more authority when it comes to things like tariffs, and when it comes to managing our economy, when it comes to managing how our country operates. And they've just continuously given more and more and more, right? So in the last season, the episode where we talked about tariffs, we talked about the tariff of 1789, we talked about the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, but we didn't really cover the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, which essentially gave the president carte blanche authority to restrict imports that were causing a threat to national security, right? Mind you, TikTok is supposedly a threat to national security, but Donald Trump has completely bypassed what the law is when it comes to TikTok and has granted them stay after stay after stay when he doesn't even have the authority to do that.
Well,
You
that's
have the
because
trade
it
act
helped
of,
win him. I'm sorry. That helped win him the election.
yeah, I mean, and then you also look at the Trade Act of 1974, right? And that was one of those where it's like, hey, President, you have the authority to respond with in-kind tariffs based off of unfair trade practices used by other countries. And then finally, there's the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, right? Now, this was, again, it was intended to be and serve as an emergency stopgap measure, something that allowed the president to respond quickly so that Congress would have time to catch up and do what they needed to do as far as passing laws. The problem is that Congress just doesn't like to do their job. And so they've kind of been asleep at the wheel for the last 2-3 decades. And as a result, we now have a situation where we have a megalomaniac president who thinks that he can do whatever he wants because he's president, and that him and his policy are the will of the people and not Congress and congressional policy, which are the will of the people.
Megalomaniac is a big word, by the way. I'm just like, wow. And two, we all know that Congress has been asleep at the wheel this entire administration too. Like both
Yeah.
Republican and Democrat. So there's that. But yeah, megalomaniac. I like that word. That is definitely a new word for me.
Yeah,
I
I
like
mean,
it.
so to make it easier, the definition's right here.
Fair, but still.
So it is, and you know me, I like to use I
Big
love
words?
big words.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not that type of guy that's like, oh well, I'm going to use a big word to make myself sound smart. I just use big words because they're easier
He
for me
does.
to find in my head, in my vocabulary, than the smaller words.
No,
Um,
you always be using the big words, and I'm just like, I'm really, kind of smart sometimes, maybe. Jesus Christ, not today.
yeah. So I mean,
Megalomaniac.
megalomaniac. Now, Congress is trying to do things about it. Like they've kind of woke up a little bit. There was we talked about Grassley, but Grassley and Senator Cantwell from Washington, they both co-signed or co-sponsored the Trade Review Act of 2025, right? And essentially what it was intended to do is reassert the congressional oversight duties and require the president to notify Congress of any new tariffs, provide justification for those tariffs, and then assess their impact on U.S. businesses and consumers, and applies an expiration date of 60 days from the establishment of those tariffs unless Congress explicitly approves those tariffs to last longer. So in other words, curtailing the president's authority to do whatever he wants and requiring him to work with Congress. Interestingly, the bill passed in the Senate, but it died on arrival to the House.
Surprising.
Yeah,
The
no,
fact that
I
it
not
passed,
not at all.
the Senate was a little, but they have been trying to come up with like ways, as you said, to bring him back down to the power that he's supposed to have, and not the almighty "I'm going to be king" bullcrap that he likes to pull. They had that joint resolution to terminate the national emergency declaration, so that was good.
Yeah, again, which is one of those things that Congress has the implicit authority to do, which is to be like, hey, guess what? There's no emergency, so ended.
Not be king, yeah.
And again, that one passed too. But lo and behold, what happens when it got to Speaker Johnson?
It died.
Dead.
Yep.
Right? Like those, and when I say dead, I mean like they're not going to get brought up. They're not going to get brought up for a vote. They're not going to. Nothing is going to happen
Well,
because Johnson controls the narrative there.
Well, this also happened during the week, which was last week, when they voted to do the proxy votes and whatnot, and it passed. And so he threw a little temper tantrum and said, "Nah, we're done for the week." And like he ended, the House on a Tuesday, and said, "We fucking
Oh
done for
yeah.
this week." And he stomped off. I don't know if it's because he wanted to go look at Grindr some more, or what the deal was, but that's what had happened. The Senate actually outperformed the House finally for one damn week.
I've often wondered what the conversation between him and his son is when his son gets notified that Johnson was on gay porn sites.
I think it was, "Hey, I already checked him out, Dad. He's more my age than yours." I don't know. I don't know. Good for him, I guess. I don't know.
It's That's still one of
I'll,
like
I'll,
the most disturbing revelations ever because like you probably shouldn't be sharing something like that with your son. Like
you,
I think
you know,
maybe
you
um
know,
but
but hold on.
continuing that line,
Straight,
right? Like
straight sons and fathers go, "Hey, yeah, that girl was hot." So I mean, it's kind of the same thing.
yeah.
Okay, so anyway, I tried.
I,
Moving on.
I See,
Don't make me defend them again.
I
Don't
want to
make me
keep
defend him
joking.
again.
I want to keep joking, but at the same time, like I don't want to put false information out there, right? Like there's no evidence that he was, but it would still be funny. But
No,
the
no.
last thing
There
that
was there was evidence he was on Grinder.
was there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well,
I
after the
shared that with
show,
you.
you and I will have
Well,
to. Yeah,
well, I'll take it. Yeah, yeah. I got you.
yeah. So and
Don't
then
worry.
the
I'll do the
final
dirty work.
my goodness, the final action that the final action that you keep derailing us, right? Like I'm trying to keep us on track, and you're over here
Listen.
like grinder.
Listen. Someone has to, one, get you off the soapbox, and two, keep this place interesting. So,
You know what would be cool is if instead of saying Speaker Johnson, maybe from here on out we just play the grinder sound whenever we're
you
referring to
know,
Speaker Johnson.
maybe.
That would be
I don't know.
hilarious. So, Speaker Johnson, grinder sound, he also blocked another bill that came out of the Senate, which is the Tariff Transparency Act of 2025. The Tariff Transparency Act of 2025, right? Don't say that 5 times fast because you will not be able to. But essentially, what this does is it mandates that the U.S. International Trade Commission studies and reports on the consequences of tariffs that are imposed, specifically on consequences on consumers and businesses, in order to be more transparent. So make the information more readily available, kind of get ahead of this misinformation, disinformation curve. Because essentially what's going to happen is that when these tariffs start going bad and when the economy starts tanking and no amount of fake news is going to pop up to make to stop that adjustment, what's going to occur is that the spin is going to get real, right? And I can tell you right now that it's going to be the Democrats' fault, or it's going to be it's going to be Congress's fault, or it's going to be Canada's fault or Mexico's fault that our economy is tanking, when in reality
Could be.
It's Trump's fault, right?
But
we're not going to blame Trump. We're going to blame everyone else, because the party that was the party of personal responsibility and accountability is now the party of, I didn't do it.
So the maple syrup and the avocados. Got it. Also, I would just like to say that you remember that old website Snopes? Snopes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It says there's no evidence that he was on Grindr, but there's no evidence that he wasn't on Grindr either. So.
Yeah, see, like I said, there's no evidence. There's nothing substantial that says that he was on Grindr.
But there's no evidence saying that he wasn't on Grindr either.
Listen, a lack of evidence does not constitute evidence.
Listen, I'm here for it. I would. Anyway, moving on. So yeah, it's. I'm gonna go with maple syrup and avocados. They're the issues.
Yeah,
maple syrup because I'm diabetic, and avocados because they're disgusting.
Avocados are amazing. What are you talking about? Like, all right. So
I don't even.
I have. Oh.
Yeah, no. My wife loves avocados and I'm not it. I'm not it.
You and my husband are going to get along quite well when it comes to the food pickiness. But
I like good food, not mush.
Suffice it to say that things are kind of turning down. Like we talked about it at the very beginning, but if we dig into the reality of what that looks like right now, the video that we have is old, right? Talking about the stock markets, but the reality is that things haven't really improved since this video.
Stocks are plunging again as a trade war escalates. China is now hitting back against President Donald Trump's tariffs. Thanks for joining us at noon on this Friday. I'm Lisa Gonzalez. Now, China announced today a 34% tariff on all products imported from the U.S. The move came 2 days after President Trump imposed the same tariff on all Chinese imports as part of what he called reciprocal tariffs on a long list of U.S. trade partners. The total U.S. tariff on some Chinese goods is at least 54%. The president singled out China as one of the nations that treat the U.S., quote, badly. China's tariff on U.S. goods will take effect next Thursday. The new U.S. tariff on Chinese goods takes effect on Wednesday. You can see how the tariffs are affecting Wall Street. This is how investors are reacting right now. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down more than 2,000 points. We're now well below that 40,000 mark. We're at 38,461. It's down overall more than 5%. The NASDAQ right now is down more than 910 points, and you can see it at 15,640. That's a 5.5% drop. And the S&P 500 is down 294 points. 294 points is a lot. For the S&P 500, it's at 5,101.
Everything's just tanking. Just tanking.
Jesus. Yeah, I mean, in that continues to be the trend today.
Right? And like before we did this recording, it actually got bumped up to 104%.
Yeah, the tariffs on China. Yeah,
it goes into effect at midnight.
Terrible. Long story short, folks, is that if you have stocks, if you have mutual funds, if you have anything that is sitting in the market right now, you need to find a safe harbor for it, park it, and ride the storm. If you don't have a safe harbor for it and it's just sitting out there, just ride the storm.
Yeah.
I mean, the best thing that the best advice that I can give anyone, right, is that a loss on the stock market is not a true loss until you sell. So it's unrealized, it's not true, it's not valid until you sell. So if you're watching your stocks tank, don't touch it. Let them go. The money will come back. Hopefully, the money will come back. But if you sell it now, you're automatically making that a loss. So you don't want to do that.
And that's what we're seeing, though, is everybody's scared of doing a sell-off.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's just the nature of the beast, right? That's kind of where we stand with this. I mean, shoot, you look at like the indices and you look at what the recommendation is, right? S&P 5 is sell, Dow Jones sell, Nasdaq sell. I mean, volatility for S&P is a strong buy, but that's because when you buy those indices, what you're buying in the volatility indice is you're betting on the stock market tanking.
So when I go to say this, it's going to make me think again, like we've talked about before, of the Lorax. But how bad can it be? How bad can it be? Anyway, I swear, that episode you got me singing on. Like, what the hell?
Well, I mean, it gives us a lot more fun to play with, right?
I'm just telling you.
Well,
I'm here for you.
This one is so hard. This one is so hard to be fun and playful about and jovial about because it's so serious.
I'll be here all week. Thank you.
It is so serious. The level of let them eat cake that came out of the Trump administration this weekend.
Oh my God.
Is abhorrent, right? Like they didn't even have to say the words "let them eat cake," but $1 million a head freaking candlelit dinner, playing golf while the stock market is tanking,
that's because he's the only one making money.
Not attending the honorary return of 4 U.S. service members who died while conducting a training exercise. Like,
listen, we give shit about Hegseth and what a douche he is, but he was there. From what I understand, he was there.
How much of that was he was there because he had to be, and how much of it was he was there because he wanted to be?
I don't know. But again, you would think that the president would have to be there, but I heard someone once say, and he was not a huge fan of Obama, didn't like anything that did with him, nothing like that, but he said that he gained a lot of respect when soldiers started coming home in bags, and he stood there for 45 minutes saluting them the whole entire time, and it took 45 minutes to get everybody off the plane. He was like, I have to give props where it's due, and that changed some of my opinion of him, but so here again it kind of, he's just shit.
Yeah. So the funny story, true story is I was talking to a family member, and we have this agreement that we don't talk politics. Unfortunately, politics is everything to me. And so like when there's issues that I want to talk to, we inevitably end up working through the politic discussion. And I brought up to my family member, I said, it's kind of funny to me that, had Obama or Biden done any of the things that Trump is doing now, you'd be up in arms about it. Like you'd be absolutely livid and talking about how he's a tyrant. But because it's Donald Trump, you're making excuses. You're going to give me the whole like, oh, well, we're just going to wait and see. We got to give him a chance. Like, okay, like it's been 3 months. How much of a chance are we going to give him? He hasn't done anything for the American worker. He hasn't done anything to bring prices down. He hasn't done anything to support Americans at home, and has done nothing but working hard to destroy America abroad and destroy our influence abroad, to the point where this next video is from Canada, our neighbors to the north, who have basically said, we're done. Like,
Right.
how does that
Fuck it.
happen? But without further ado, before we really go into this, let's go ahead and let's play this one.
The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperations, is over. I reject any attempts to weaken Canada, to wear us down, to break us so that America can own us. That will never happen. And our response to these latest tariffs is to fight, is to protect, and to build. We won't back down. We will respond forcefully. Nothing is off the table to defend our workers and our country. What exactly the United States does next is unclear. What is clear is that we, as Canadians, have agency. We have power. We are masters in our own home. We can control our destiny. We can give ourselves much more than any foreign government, including the United States, can ever take away.
Yeah, that's, it's sad. We've had, a good partnership with them, a good relationship, I guess, and it's just gone to such shit. But we hear what they're gonna put up a fight. They're not gonna, they're not going to let us own them. What exactly are they doing? I know you already know all these answers. You got it down in your little brain box of yours. What you got? Break it down for me.
I'm sorry. So what I zoned out on your question. What's your question?
God, I don't blame you. It's this it's this topic, and yet you have us here. No, what is Canada doing? To I guess go back on this, to fight this, because they said they're gonna fight. So what are we doing?
So the interesting thing about this entire situation, right, is Canada's like, hey bro, like, appreciate it, but don't appreciate it. Go fuck yourself. But no, the long and short of it is that Canada is working with its European allies to establish an economic trade alliance that cuts the United States out.
Okay.
So where we had BRICS, right, which was the Brazil, Russia, India, China, Saudi Arabia economic conglomerate, right?
Right.
The new thing that we're going to see rise up is that there's going to be a Western form of that, I guess, that's going to be kind of spurred on by Canada, because essentially what Canada is saying is, we're not going to pay your outrageously high tariffs that have zero impact on anything that should be involved with regards to us, because we used to be best friends, and we're tired of you punching us in the face and blaming us for it. So we're just going to take our toys and go play with someone else.
So it's like that saying, why are you slapping yourself? Stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself. Yeah, one of those things. But it also makes me think of when it first started. Canada was like, oh yeah? Hey bro, you like your lights? You like the electricity that we give you? I'll turn it off. I will do it. I kept waiting for them to do it. They never did. That was kind of sad.
Never say never, right?
Funny,
like
funny.
the timing isn't over, and there's still
Absolutely
a possibility that it could happen, right? But I mean, when you have a president who is placing tariffs on every single one of our allies, to include an island that has no human being on it, but is populated by penguins,
that
right?
was funny.
Like they got slapped with a 10% tariff.
He's gonna be pissed when they don't start paying. What do you want this in
damn penguins,
polar bear
man.
shit or penguin shit? Because know where there's penguins, there's usually whales, seals, polar bears.
Well,
somewhere.
What's ironic is that you look at this, right, and like Donald Trump, is he taking a hard stance against China? Yes, he is. Absolutely. 100%, right? Like, he's going to tariff the living daylights out of them. 104% tariff on everything. Well, guess what? Your iPhones just shot up in price.
Yeah, they did.
The majority of your computer chips just shot up in price. You name it.
So I have a question. And
Yeah.
we talked about who he's tariff, who's on that list of tariffs. So we're pretty much just about everybody. Is there anybody not on the list? Like, is he just like, is he handing out freebies? Like, what do we got? We got reach arounds. Like, what are we doing here?
Well, I mean, in reality, like, you probably don't want to tariff yourself, right? And
well, I mean, there's
Vladimir Putin has decided that he, in his implementation of United States tariffs through his puppet Donald Trump, he has chosen not to implement tariffs on himself, which,
I mean, there's that.
I kind of did like the bendy. I did the Donald Trump weave, right? So like I went out and I came back in. But what I'm trying to get there, right? The longer answer here is
terrible. That's
damn,
terrible.
I'm getting good at the weave too.
Shit. Hey,
watch
fact.
out,
Not
Donnie.
really
I'm
fact.
coming for you.
Did you know that Russia and the U.S. is only have like 2.4 or 2.5 miles between each other?
Are you talking about up by Alaska?
Yeah.
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 I mean, but that's like so. Okay, Sarah Palin.
So Sarah Palin wasn't wrong when she said, "I can see Russia from my front door."
Well, I mean,
Damn,
she
man,
wasn't
I
wrong,
thought
but
she
she
was
wasn't right
bullshit.
either, right? Like,
it's not like being
the
at the
reality
Florida
is
Keys and
that
seeing, the lights from Cuba.
it's not really Russia because it's more
Just a yes.
Siberia than Russia, right? Like,
I mean, fair.
no one lives there. It's like saying I can see the Sahara Desert. Like, no one lives there, and the ones that do, they're not really Russian. They're more Inuit than anything else.
I mean,
Or Chinese or Mongol, depends on which part of Sahara you're in.
I just thought it was not fun fact. So now we had to take it all technical and serious. Let's move on.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So fun, not fun fact is that during World War II, we funneled troops and weapons and supplies through Siberia into Russia in order to bolster the Eastern Front.
Yep. Rumor has it if it freezes, good enough, you could just walk your happy little ass over to Siberia. Mush with the dogs. I don't know.
That's how the ancient Americans got here. They crossed.
I know.
Yeah.
Someone said build a tunnel.
Hey, history.
The underwater tunnel. Woo! Repeats itself.
Goodness.
Can't help it.
So, but the reality is, and I got another video for you, and this talks to the countries that were mysteriously, specifically Russia, was mysteriously left off of the tariff list, while Ukraine received a nice 10% tariff on itself. So I'll go ahead and play this, and then I've got a few pointers to make after this video. So let's go ahead and play this one.
Now, for weeks, Donald Trump has promised that all countries in the world would be hit by higher US tariffs. But some countries were notably absent from the list Trump presented at the White House, including Russia, Belarus, Cuba, and North Korea. The reason, according to administration officials, is that Cuba, Belarus, and North Korea already face high tariffs and tough sanctions. and the US has no meaningful trade with Russia.
That's tariffs charged to the
Alina Rybakova is a non-resident senior fellow at the Pedersen Institute for International Economics. Great to have you with us. Trump's team says no new tariffs on Russia because there is no real trade with the US. Is that the case?
Well, in isolation, that could be the plausible explanation, because at the moment, Russia exports about $3 billion to the US. This is the figure for 2024. At the peak, we have seen 30 billion exported to the US, and even more historically. So the share of trade is very small, but taken together with other steps. For example, Russia's CEO for the investment fund, Russian investment fund, is at the moment in Washington as we speak, negotiating deals with the current US administration, potentially sanctions relief as well.
Trump has vowed to impose sanctions on countries that trade with Russia. If he was seriously looking to hurt Russia or keep it in line with all the other tariffs, would a baseline tariff of 10% not be simpler and more effective?
That would definitely be simpler and more effective. In fact, it's easy to target Russian exports because Russia exports at the moment mostly to China and India, a bit to Turkey, but mostly 60% of Russian exports is oil and gas. If you add other natural resources, you get to 85. So you could specifically target Russian oil and gas, and that would already be extremely impactful.
Ukraine goods will have the generic 10% levy imposed on all goods exported to the US. Could that 10% have an impact on Ukraine's ability to fight Russia?
On the margin, I think these tariffs sort of are important, but not critical for Ukraine's performance. Ukraine exported to the US less than $1 billion last year. I think it's about 900 million or so. Yes, it will be noticeable, but for Ukraine, it exports a lot to Europe. It exports a lot to the global south. So it is an impact on the margin, but it will not impact the war or sort of protecting itself from Russia's invasion.
As to where we go from here, predicting Trump's behaviour is difficult for most people. Do you see a pattern, though? Can you make a case for what he might be planning to do with Russia in terms of trade?
For me, the critical news would be about sanctions relief. It is interesting that Russia kept on saying for the last 3 years publicly that sanctions are not working, but privately they have been producing a lot of research how to counteract sanctions. And it's ironic that the first ask they have from the United States is about sanctions relief. What we have seen, sort of the few observations so far, is that the Black Sea deal seems to be more advantageous to Russia than to anybody else. The same on this temporary energy ceasefire, again, is more advantageous to Russia than to Ukraine or anybody else. So we see the pattern emerging. Of course, it's only a couple of observations. I just hope that we don't see further relief on sanctions before any durable ceasefire happens with Ukraine.
Alina Rybakova from the Pedersen Institute for International Economics. Great to have you with us. Thank you.
Wow, no meaningful trade with Russia.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Like if you go through like the process, right? Like has at its peak, Russia and the United States traded roughly $30 billion worth of goods, right? That is decreased and is now $3 billion. So if you kind of look at it from that perspective, yeah, sure. Like we've already tariffed the shit out of them. There's really not much to tariff anymore. But, pause for effect. If we were to apply that, and this is where that damned equation comes in, right? Like if we were to take that same process and we were to apply it to, Ukraine, right? Ukraine in 2024 exported 874 million, not billion with a B, but million with an M to the United States. And yet that is enough of an economic contribution to warrant a 10% tariff on those goods.
Right,
but
like that's the issue.
3 billion with a B somehow is minute and doesn't have any impact, and we don't really need to tariff that. I think that in this is where I go back to my original statement of good old Vladdy ain't gonna tariff himself, right? Like everything that's being done is being done in support of Russia and in the or against the best interests of the United States, right? Like Donald Trump talks about MAGA, MAGA, MAGA. Well, guess what? Like there's a reason I call people maggots when they do this blind following of MAGA. And it's not because I think so lowly of them. It's because of the fact that they don't apply critical thinking skills, right? Like they're somehow they miss critical thinking in kindergarten when they were growing up because they don't have that capability anymore. They don't have the ability to say, you know what, I really like what he's saying, but everything around me is on fire and he's holding the gas can and the match. So it must be him.
Yeah.
But they don't do that. They see him holding the gas can and the match, and they're like, he took that from someone else, and he's just trying to put the fire out.
It kind of that makes me think of, funny enough, not funny, of something I heard about, people's issues with trans women playing sports. And it's like, reasonable thinking people didn't think about it like this. There's no way a regular cisgendered male would go through vocal training, surgeries, freaking HRT, all of that to say, yes, I want to win against women, when one, they don't get paid the same amount in sports. They don't get the same type of, you're not going to see, women's sports as much as you see men's sports. They don't get the same type of sponsorships. They don't get none of that. So why would they actually just go, hey, this is what I want to do. This is my dream, to just go beat women.
Yeah, I just
I don't know. Anyway, that's what made me think of that.
I don't think there's an answer, right? Like
critical thinking.
There's zero, right? They don't go through that process. They believe what they're told. They're led around by the nose, and that's the end of it. That same family member, I asked him if he knew that Donald Trump was playing golf rather than trying to work his way through the process of fixing the economy. And I got I don't know anything about that. And then when I said, did you know that he's having a $1 million per person candlelit dinner at Mar-a-Lago when he should be in Delaware greeting the bodies of the four slain soldiers? And I got, I don't know anything about that either. Like,
yeah, no, I don't get it. I don't understand. Like, I don't understand how they don't know, or it's one of those, like, what the fuck? Or, hey, we hear he's allowed to blow off steam and take time out. Okay, every fucking weekend, he's there. Yep. Every fucking weekend.
Yep. And so if it was him going to Camp David, right, it would be different, because Camp David is a government facility and there isn't going to be a cost associated with him going there that isn't already planned for and budgeted for. Him going to Mar-a-Lago is essentially him making himself richer, because the Secret Service has to pay to stay at Mar-a-Lago, which, that's owned by Trump. So he's essentially charging the Secret Service to protect him.
Nick?
While revoking Secret Service details for everyone that he doesn't like. I digress. My point here is that...
So...
Go ahead.
Didn't Trump say? I'm sorry. I'm moving not really critically thinking, but I'm moving down the line here, trying to think and trying to make people think. But didn't Trump say that the tariffs weren't going to affect people? Like the average everyday person.
Yeah, so if you I've got a whole bunch of videos queued up. The first one, if you
Jesus
remember,
Christ.
remember what his favorite word is, the most beautiful word in the dictionary?
Tariffs.
Yeah, well, let's just go ahead and play this one real quick.
Okay.
To me, the most beautiful word in the dictionary is tariff, and it's my favorite word. It needs a public relations firm to help it, but to me, it's the most beautiful word.
It needs a public relations team.
Public relations firm.
It's the most beautiful word in the dictionary, right? Like, so I was listening to that, and I listened to the whole economic forum with the Bloomberg, and I listened to him talk, and that dude is downright, he's disrespectful as all get up, telling the interviewer that he understands that it must be embarrassing to be talking about economics for 25 years and then to have someone who knows nothing about economics get up and say that he's wrong. What? Right. Like, all of a sudden, Donald Trump is the know-all. I hate know-it-alls. I really do. But what that came off to me, that whole, like, tariff is a beautiful word. It sounds like Donald Trump was riffing through the the dictionary, and he just happened to be in the T's, found tariff, and was like, oh, I like this word. It sounds good on my tongue. I like saying tariff, right? Without really understanding what a tariff is. He's a fucking child.
He really is. He honestly is.
Now,
so
you fast forward, right? And like that was done when he was a candidate, right? So that was done middle of the campaign with Kamala Harris and working through that process. But after he was elected, he sat down with another news organization and he went through another interview. That organization, or excuse me, the interview show is called Meet the Press. So I'll go ahead and play this first one, which these note to the viewers and Avery, these videos are not in order. So it's not like in the time order of, hey, first he said this and then he said this and then he said that. I'm playing them in a more logical flow to kind of talk through. And I kind of want to hit on a few of things that he said and work our way down through the line. So the first one is him talking about using tariffs as a tool.
They also solve another problem. If we were going to have problems having to do with wars and having to do with other things, tariffs, I have stopped wars with tariffs by saying, you guys want to fight, it's great, but both of you are going to pay tariffs to the United States at 100%. And they have many purposes, tariffs, if properly used. I don't say you use them like a madman. I say properly used. But it didn't cost this country anything. It made this country money. And we never really got the chance to go all out because we had to fight COVID in the last part. And we did it very successfully. And when I handed it over to Biden, the stock market was higher than what it was just previous to COVID coming in. It was actually higher. Tariffs are properly used, are a very powerful tool, not only economically, but also for getting other things outside of economics.
Okay, so doing away with the idea that he has stopped wars with tariffs. One, I have not seen any indication, like exactly, like there's no proof of that, right? However, utilizing and leveraging tariffs as a tool of diplomacy, that's a valid. There's nothing wrong in doing it in that process, right? Tariffs work when they're done in a surgical manner, when they're done in a way that is designed to help influence the outcomes of trade negotiations, of treaties, of you name it. Like when they're used the correct way, they've got power. And, he even talks about that, right? Like, tariffs are a great tool, but you can't just go randomly like applying tariffs to everyone. Like he even acknowledges that.
Yeah.
But then as president, he has done or taken the wrecking ball approach, right? So, I mean, that right there is goodness. Like, you know that he knows. You know that he understands.
Yeah.
You know that he doesn't care.
He just
like,
he just doesn't give a shit at all.
Now, the next piece is again taken from that same interview, and this is where, you know, the reporter is asking him whether or not or what validity there is to concerns about companies passing on the cost of tariffs to their customers. Ironically, he says that tariffs cost Americans nothing, but we'll go ahead and...
Sir, your previous tariffs during your first administration cost Americans some $80 billion, and now you have major companies from Walmart, Black & Decker, AutoZone saying that any tariffs are going to force them to drive up prices for their consumers. How do you make sure that these CEOs, that these companies don't, in fact, pass on the cost of tariffs to their consumers?
They cost Americans nothing. They made a great economy for us.
Cost America nothing, and they made a great economy for us. I'm going to assume that they made a great economy for us would be the tariffs and not the companies.
Yeah,
Okay,
no, the tariffs made the great economy. And so what he does is he often does this thing where, like, he tries to apply, like, equivalency to, hey, you know, we were on the way to having a booming economy, and then COVID hit, and there was nothing that I could do, and I handled that brilliantly, and blah 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 blah. Like,
so many people died.
Relitigate that, but the thing here is that she very clearly said that your first round of tariffs during Trump 1.0 costs American taxpayers $80 billion.
Right.
Only for him then to turn around and be like, tariffs cost nothing to the American people. Like, how do you... There has to be some, like, mental acrobatics that allow for someone to hear what is being asked of them, hear the factual numbers, and then completely obliterate and eliminate any of those numbers and those facts by just not responding or acknowledging that they were even uttered. Like, it's absurd. It's absurd. And you look at Trump 1.0, and we talked about this last season. Trump 1.0, those tariffs resulted in the requirement for the federal government to subsidize our farmers because China's response to American tariffs was tariffs, which hurt American farmers, which resulted in the need for the United States to put money into the American farm industry. And when they had to put money into the American farm industry, they ate up all of the profits that came as a result from the tariffs with China. So what the fuck good did it do?
Nothing. And I know the next video is just as freaking ridiculous as the other two that we just watched.
Yeah. So remember, folks at home, remember this piece. Tariffs cost Americans nothing. He just said that, right? In this interview, it's the exact same interview. Now, mind you, the can't guarantee tomorrow, that comment was actually made before the tariffs cost Americans nothing comment. But I'm playing it in this order because what I want to do is make sure that I'm very clear with everyone that Donald Trump, in one sitting with one reporter, managed to contradict himself.
I want to delve into one of your signature promises on the campaign trail, which was to end inflation, to lower prices. You are now proposing tariffs against the United States' three biggest trading partners. Economists of all stripes say that ultimately consumers pay the price of tariffs.
I don't believe
Can you guarantee American families won't pay more?
I can't guarantee anything. I can't guarantee tomorrow.
So they straight up go after the three top countries that we have trade with, but he can't guarantee that it's not going to affect us or any other average person in the economy. Love
and yet
it.
somehow
It's not going to cost us anything.
I don't understand where his logic flows. I don't understand where the things that he says comes from. I really don't. And I also don't understand why people can't seem to comprehend that Trump has not done anything good for us. In the 3 months that he has been in office, Trump has not done anything good for us. And it has only been bad, repetitively.
I can't disagree. Like I just can't. And it's not because I can't stand the man, because I mean that is pretty much factual, but it's only because of the stupid shit he does. And who he's shown us that he is. But you and we've been through Democratic candidates and Democratic presidents, and we're like, why are you being so fucking stupid? Like, I mean, so I have no problem calling people out. If you're being dumb, you're being dumb. Like, but anyway, so we have explored so many different things already through here. Do you see any of these elements, converging, all the things that we've seen throughout this whole entire episode that we've talked about? The historical context, the legal foundations, the repercussions, international response.
Here's I I think
I
that
know
things
it's
are gonna
difficult.
things are going to get worse before they get better, right? Like honestly, they are.
I know.
But and Avery, I brought this up to you time and time again, right? And I'm going to say it again. I'm just going to keep saying it because it has real validity here, right? And that is Operation Uranus.
Oh man,
and what I mean by Operation Uranus, right, is that Donald Trump and his cohorts, right, his band of
pisses in my Cheerios,
super rich thieves, right? We've talked about how I believe that they're going to overextend themselves at some point. In the same way that the Germans overextended themselves when they invaded Russia, the same thing is going to happen with these fuckers, right? They are overextending themselves. So they are going to overplay their hand, and they are going to lead themselves open to an Operation Uranus. And what I mean by Operation Uranus is... Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, to bring out the whole... I see what you're saying. I read an article yesterday that billionaires are already turning on Trump. So, it's my way of saying you're right.
Shining lights, right? Like Democrats are starting to speak out a little bit louder. Republicans are starting to speak out a little bit louder. And what I'll associate there is something we haven't really talked about. They're not just going to
lay on their backs?
Well, I mean, let's think about what happened on April 1st, right? There was a slew of elections. There were the special elections down in Florida where Republicans were like, oh, well, they spent millions of dollars and they lost. Like, we want them to keep doing that. Well, the reality is that they lost by like a very slim majority in both House races. And it was so close that it forced the Trump administration to pull Elise Stefanik out of the running for ambassador to the United Nations because they were afraid of losing the House. Like that's how close that one was. And then you look up to is it Wisconsin?
Yeah, it was Wisconsin.
Was it Wisconsin? Yep. So when you look up to Wisconsin, right, they had the Supreme Court judge. They had the Supreme Court justice election, and Elon Musk dumped millions of dollars into that campaign and lost. And the reason I bring that up is because, again, Operation Uranus, right? We have one of those situations where we're watching them overextend themselves. We're watching them get to a point where they are proving that they are not infallible and that they can be touched. There is blood in the water, and all it's going to take is for the sharks to start circling. Trump does not have long. The Trump administration does not have long. It will be over sooner than we think.
I'm kind of wondering how the election is going on where I'm at. So far, the in-person voter turnout has only reached 8%. So there's that. Should be interesting. That's for sure.
Well, I would encourage you to check up on those elections and keep track of them.
Yeah,
Were
I'm
any of
looking
those
for-
national elections?
It's more. It's the general municipal election, so not really anything to.
Okay.
Yeah, but the like the clerk was expecting 25% voter turnout, and the polls close at 7, so there's it could happen. By 10 a.m. it would reached 8.6%. So that's in person. We had early voting for about a week or two now. So
Yeah, I'm seeing an article here saying that in-person turnout has reached 19%.
yeah. Well, in our chancellor for the college here was just down in Mar-a-Lago talking about grants and funding and whatnot.
Of
So
course.
he was
Of course.
yeah, he was visiting Mar-a-Lago to discuss federal grant funding. So it is what
Yeah,
it is.
um,
My state is red, but the city that I'm in luckily stays pretty blue. So that's a breath of fresh air. Granted, I'm not that far from the capital as well, so that's a very red area. So is what it is.
Well, like I said, I do think that we are in the process of witnessing that overextension. Things are going to get worse, but like I said,
Yeah.
and this is by no means a threat, and I don't want I'm going to get flagged for saying this. The Trump administration doesn't have long, right? And it's not a threat. It's just a statement of politics.
I mean,
There's
yeah,
going
they don't
to
have
come a
long
time-
before they get taken down by the people. Is what we're saying. By laws and how the governing body works. That's how we're gonna word it.
Right. Yeah. So the system will right itself. Is kind of
Yes,
where we're
thank
going
you.
with that. And it's not going to
I'm
take
here
very
for
long
you,
that
Battle. I'm
to-
here
to
for
start,
you.
right? Like the system will reset. That's all we've got for today. We covered quite a lot of ground, recovered some of that ground.
My
And
goodness.
we hope that you picked up some useful information about what's happening in politics right now. Next week, we do plan, unless something happens, we do plan to cover down on freedom of speech and freedom of speech laws around the nation. There's a few things that I would love to talk to, like Idaho's new bill talking about requiring the Bible being read in school, with the plan for the entire Bible to be read over the course of 10 years.
Jesus Christ.
But that's next week. Hopefully things play out the way that they're supposed to. But
Our freedom is to get yanked.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Anyway, so before we head out, I want everyone to be aware, like I informed last week, we do have a Discord channel, and we would like to see everybody there. We do have, our Facebook group, 64. Please, join there. But I would really like to see more people come over to Discord, because you and I, we hang out there almost daily, and we sit here and we work on everything and shoot the shit, and we'd love to meet everybody else who is interested in getting a crayon and a coloring book, or their own little line paper out, and they could doodle or whatever they want to do, and work with us, I guess. Not work with us, but while they're doing their work, just doing what we do. Anyway, Jesus.
Yeah, but with all that being said, remember, folks, stay informed,
Stay engaged,
and always color outside the political lines.